Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Gentlemen, we have reached Waterloo, the last episode before the Marshall series starts in the Napoleonic Wars playlist. It's been a great journey. There are a few episodes before. One of the few things that I knew about the Napoleonic Wars or battles that I was familiar with was Trafalgar. And I never saw it, and pretty early on, somebody told me that it happened in an episode prior to where I started the Napoleonic Wars 1 through 6, and so I'll end up going back there. But this is Waterloo. One of the few things I knew about the war, or a battle about the Napoleonic Wars. Napoleon is going to make a little bit of a comeback, I know, and yeah, let's get into it. Subscribers, how's it going? Hope you're doing good. If you are not subscribed, my name's Connor. I love learning about history through YouTube recommendations down in the comments, which you guys have been so great at so far, and would love you to join us. Let's get started. Original video down in the description below. I would recommend watching the previous episode, either my reaction to it or on straight from Epic History TV, but that's up to you. Let's get into it, people. Waterloo, 1815.
April 1814. For 10 years, one man has dominated Europe. Napoleon Bonaparte, Emperor of the French. Under his military genius, France conquered an empire that spanned the continent. But finally, he has been defeated by a grand coalition of his enemies. Napoleon is forced to abdicate and exiled to the tiny island of Elba, while the Bourbon monarchy is restored to France in the corpulent form of Louis XVIII. But rumors soon reach Napoleon that France would welcome his return. The French people have little love for the monarchy or its hangers-on, the very people whose excesses led to the French Revolution 25 years before. He also learns that at the Congress of Vienna, it's
getting a little warm in here. I just want to turn on the air conditioning. Okay, sorry about that.
On the very people whose excesses led to the French Revolution 25 years before. He also learns that at the Congress of Vienna, his enemies are locked in bitter dispute over the future of Europe. Napoleon decides to act. After just 10 months in exile, he returns to France, where the troops sent to arrest him rally to his cause instead. Most of France soon follows suit. But in Vienna,
how do you let
the
this
coalition
happen?
immediately put their differences to one side. They declare Napoleon an outlaw and mobilize their forces for war. Napoleon knows he must act boldly before the coalition launches a coordinated invasion of France. He counts on winning a quick victory and then negotiating peace from a position of strength. He targets the...
So he's trying to, I was about to say before the video just explained it, what is he hoping to achieve out of this? Does he really think that he's, after all those deaths of so many of his soldiers, that he's going to reconquer Europe? But he's just trying to get back to a point where the Allies at least have to think about losing thousands more soldiers in order to take it back, and maybe think about consolidation. So
coalition armies within easiest reach: Prince Blucher's Prussian army and the Duke of Wellington's Anglo-Allied army, both camped in Belgium. Napoleon's force is a match for either coalition army on its own, but he'll be heavily outnumbered if they're able to join forces, so he must keep them apart and defeat each in turn.
Make sure everything's running smoothly. Good to go. Okay.
Napoleon's army crosses the frontier near Charleroi, intending to drive a wedge between the two coalition armies. The next day, Napoleon sends his left wing under Marshal Ney to take the crossroads at Quatre Bras. It's
strange. I believe it was Light X7 who pointed out that this video was a little lackluster compared to the others, and I'm already kind of seeing a difference. Was this made kind of one of the first? Wow, it was made in 2015. So, I mean, it's going to be amazing no matter what. I'm not dogging Epic History TV, obviously, but Light X7 said, who's someone down in my comments, gives great comments, great explanations and little tips. Said to check out another Waterloo episode, which I will check out before continuing or starting the Marshals series. And I hope Suchet gets his own episode because he was sort of my favorite along the way, and really just because he showed. I'm getting past what I was trying to convey. Yeah, so I know that. I'll check out that other video too. Sorry about that.
There, Ney clashes with Wellington's army, still scrambling into position. The Allied troops fight off a series of French attacks and just manage to hold their ground. The same day, Napoleon attacks Blücher's Prussian army with his main force near the village of Ligny. The battle is a brutal slugging match, but the French emerge triumphant. The 72-year-old Blücher leads a cavalry charge in person and has his horse killed under him. He only just escapes capture. The Prussian army retreats, but it is not broken. Napoleon sends his right wing under Marshal Grouchy to keep them on the run, and turns his own attention to Wellington's army. The British general doesn't receive news of Blücher's defeat until the next morning, at which point he orders a retreat through heavy summer showers to a position 8 miles south of Brussels, near the village of Waterloo. There he receives a promise from Blücher that the Prussians will march to his aid the next morning. So Wellington decides to stand and fight. Wellington has chosen his battlefield with care. His troops are behind a gentle ridge which will give them some shelter from French cannon fire. His right flank is anchored on the farmhouse of Hougoumont, his center on the farm of La Haye-Sainte, and his left on the farm of Papelotte. All three are fortified and garrisoned with elite troops. Wellington's men need every advantage they can get. The opposing armies are roughly equal in size, but his is a ragtag mix of British, Dutch, and German troops, many of whom have never seen combat before. They will have to hold off Napoleon's army of veterans until Prussian reinforcements arrive, or the battle and probably the war will be lost. Sunday.
I gotta take a piss, guys. Be right back before this starts. All right, sorry about that, boys.
Dawns bright and fair. Napoleon has ordered Marshal Grouchy to pursue the Prussians and keep them busy, while he defeats Wellington's army at Waterloo and opens the road to Brussels. Sunday dawns bright and fair. Napoleon has ordered Marshal Grouchy to pursue the Prussians and keep them busy, while he defeats Wellington's army at Waterloo and opens the road to Brussels. But it's Grouchy who gets pinned down, fighting the Prussian rear guard at Wavre. The main Prussian force eludes him and is already marching to Wellington's aid. At Waterloo, Napoleon delays his attack, waiting for the ground to dry, which will make movement easier for his troops. But the lost hours will later prove costly. The battle begins around 11 a.m., when Napoleon orders a feint against Wellington's right flank at Hougoumont. He hopes Wellington will commit his reserves here, drawing them away from the center where the main blow will fall. But Hougoumont British and German defenders cling on desperately throughout the day. At one point, the French force their way through the main gate, but it's shut behind them, and the intruders are all killed. Wellington later calls it the decisive moment of the battle.
Really?
Around noon, 80 French cannon open fire against the main Allied line. Most of Wellington's men are out of sight on the reverse slope, but many cannonballs still find their mark, smashing bloody holes in the Allied ranks. At 1:30 p.m., Napoleon sends in his infantry. The French columns are met by disciplined musket fire, and then charged by British heavy cavalry. The French attack disintegrates as Napoleon's men try to save themselves from the crushing hooves and flashing sabers. Scores of Frenchmen are ridden down, and 2 of their famous Eagle standards are captured. But the British cavalry, exhilarated by success, charge too far. They become scattered, their horses blown. At their most vulnerable, they're countercharged by French cavalry and suffer terrible losses. Among the dead, Major General Sir William Ponsonby, commander of the Union Brigade. Around 4 p.m., Marshal Ney thinks he sees the Allies begin to retreat and leads a mass cavalry charge to drive home the advantage. But Ney is wrong. The Allied infantry are ready, formed in hollow squares with bayonets fixed. The French cavalry can't break into these impregnable formations. They can only circle impotently until they retreat or are shot from the saddle. Ney's failure to support this attack with either infantry or artillery.
Interesting. So the point of a cavalry charge many times is to mix up and confuse the defenders and their formations, and then kill down as many people as you can. But with those strong little guards they form in themselves, not only can the French cavalry not inflict casualties, but it also is just a sitting duck, which is pretty cool.
Is a serious blunder. Meanwhile, Blücher's Prussians have begun to arrive. They capture the village of Plancenoit, threatening Napoleon's flank and forcing him to send reserves to recapture it. Around 6 p.m., French infantry finally capture the farmhouse of La Haye-Sainte in the center of the battlefield. It allows the French to bring forward artillery and blast the Allied squares from close range. They can't miss the closely packed formations.
I was like so upset one of these past videos, and then someone pointed out, like, dude, you watched the formations video, military formations, and I'm like, what are these squares? What are these squares? Why aren't they filled in? And they're the squares, the formations of soldiers. So I'm an idiot there. Thanks whoever that was that pointed that out last video, or 2 videos ago.
And casualties quickly mount.
Maybe 3.
It begins to seem that if Wellington's army doesn't retreat, it will be killed where it stands. But the situation for Napoleon is also desperate. The Prussians are arriving in force, and he's running out of men to throw against Wellington's army. So he turns to his ultimate reserve, the elite Imperial Guard, the most feared troops in Europe. At 7:30 p.m., 3,000 of these battle-hardened veterans march past their emperor and across the corpse-strewn battlefield towards the Allied center. Wellington's redcoats rise to meet them and pour devastating volleys of musket fire into their ranks. When the Allies fix bayonets and prepare to charge, the Imperial Guard wavers and then retreats. Wellington, sensing victory, orders a general advance. About the same time, the Prussians recapture Plancenoit. News of the Imperial Guard's defeat and rumors of encirclement by the Prussians sweep through the French ranks. Panic breaks out, and the French army flees the battlefield. Only Napoleon's old guard maintained their discipline, mounting a heroic but doomed rearguard action. Napoleon himself is forced to abandon his carriage and barely escapes the pursuing Prussian cavalry. The battle is won. The Duke of Wellington and Prince Blücher meet and congratulate each other outside Napoleon's former headquarters, an inn called La Belle Alliance. Blücher thinks it's the perfect name for their shared victory, but Wellington prefers the more English-sounding Waterloo, where he has his own headquarters. The Battle of Waterloo was, in the words of the Duke of Wellington, a damned near-run thing. It was also one of the bloodiest battles of the age. Around 50,000 men were killed or wounded, 23,000 coalition casualties, 27,000 French. Due to an appalling shortage of medical care, many of the wounded were left lying on the battlefield for several days. Napoleon was utterly defeated. Unable to raise another army, he surrendered to the British. They transported him to a second exile on the tiny, remote Atlantic island of St. Helena. This time there was no escape. He died there 6 years later.
Such mixed emotion. Great leader.
Waterloo marked the beginning of a period.
I don't really want to pass that by. This has been a roller coaster. This series has been a roller coaster. It has been very enjoyable and very mentally stimulating for me, and very enjoyable, and just a great experience overall. I know I have the marshals to go. This video isn't completely over. It's almost over. It should be over in a few seconds. But I don't look at this with like a yeah or a, you got to respect the military prowess and genius of this man, and I can't believe that they let French soldiers go over and take him away from his original what's it called? I forget, the island where he was banished to. I can't believe he was able to round up troops again to of course I knew it going into the other videos. If I didn't know about Waterloo and about his second kind of attempt, I would not have given him a chance after losing Paris. But amazing series.
Waterloo marked the beginning of a period of relative peace in Europe. There were no wars between the great powers for 40 years, and the British would not fight on the continent for another 100 years, until the summer of 1914.
Going to Bayside is going to change our lives. That is the hottest man I've ever seen.
It's crazy to think how living around the time of World War One, or World War One, is as far in the past to us now as Waterloo was to them. In fact, World War One is slightly longer in the past than if you had been living during World War One than the Napoleonic Wars were to you.
40 years after the battle, a pioneer in the new art of photography captured these remarkable images. They're veterans of Napoleon's armies,
No
by
way.
then all old men in their 70s and 80s. Among them, Sergeant Tanya of the Imperial Guard.
So this guy was in the Imperial Guard, huh?
Moray of the 2nd Regiment of Hussars, and Verline of the 2nd Guard Lancers. These faces are a tantalizing link to the dramatic events that shaped the course of history 2 centuries ago.
I cannot put into words my praise for this channel, and my thanks to you guys for supporting me along the way, helping me learn about this stuff. Hopefully you learned something too, or you're able to teach people or me something. Thanks guys so much. I'm over 400 subscribers. It's crazy to say, and I love that there are enough of you who are interested in this stuff to keep me going, and I love doing it. I am going to look at another Napoleonic, the Battle of Waterloo, Light X7 suggested. I will check that out, and I will obviously continue into the Napoleon's Marshals, looking for the Suchet. If Suchet doesn't have an episode, I'm going to be bummed out. No. Yeah, great, awesome. And I think someone recommended War of the Roses, which I'd like to get into too, maybe as like another series. I think there's one on Kings and Generals or one of those other good channels. Yeah, so hope you guys enjoyed that. See you guys next time.